Do you ever feel that there is more to life than the everyday routine? Have you ever wanted to tap into your divine essence? In this episode, we will unveil the mystical secrets behind the historical birth of Jesus and how it relates to the second birth within each and every one of us. Hi, I'm Naika, your host. In this 10th episode of Towards a Solar Civilization, Carmen will explore many more topics, including the cosmic and mystical significance behind the historical birth of Jesus, the esoteric meaning of the manger, the ox, the ass, the star in the sky, and the three wise men, who were all magi, the difference between Jesus and Christ, the Black Virgin and their meaning, the relationship between higher consciousness and the second birth, and why the second birth is our ultimate destiny. Carmen will share quite a few practical applications and exercises to connect to our soul and our spirit. And finally, she will tell us how to use the very first 12 days of the new year to experience a shift towards a higher consciousness. What an invitation to spend the Christmas season differently and to prepare for a luminous new year. I cannot wait to hear this talk. Over to you, Carmen.
Thank you, Naika, and welcome to Connecting with Our Soul and Spirit to experience a mystical Christmas, including a fantastic recipe to begin the first 12 days of the year. Did you know that there are 4 cardinal feasts during the year, each linked to an equinox and to a solstice, such as the spring equinox around Easter, the fall equinox at Michaelmas, and the solstices is one in the summer with the Feast of St. John and one in the winter with Christmas. We did not hear so much about the celebration of St. John and Michaelmas, but in several countries they celebrate with bonfires. When Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov was visiting Quebec, he celebrated the St. John with a sacred fire ceremony, addressing the brothers and sisters for the special occasion, as he always did at the Bonfin in Michaelmas. The Bonfin is the international center of retreat in France. He suggested to those present in Quebec that from there on the cardinal feast could be celebrated with a sacred fire every year. These cardinal feasts are a cosmic phenomenon. They carry tremendous energies that move in nature and the entire cosmos. They invite us to be in harmony with these currents, and if we welcome this impetus, we can use it for our spiritual work and our advancement. The winter solstice is linked to the darkest time of the year. Nature seems to be dormant. Even us, we spend more time indoor. It is a time for introspection, for going within, for working on our own matter. Yet, if nature seems asleep, a lot is going on in the ground as nature concentrates in the seeds the energies of the plants in preparation for the spring regeneration. These feasts were instituted by great teachers and initiates because they saw and felt these energies in the cosmos. Human beings have celebrations associated with each of these feasts. Have the initiates of the past instituted celebrations simply for humans to amuse themselves? No, their intention was primarily to provide them with a pause, to suspend the work rhythm which, in that epoch, was continuous and exhausting, since vacations and holidays were unheard of. These initiates wanted to set free, at least for a moment, the consciousness of so many men and women overburdened with duties that affected and destroyed their health. They wanted to create a release valve in order to free their restrained psychic energies. Celebrations and feasts through songs, dances, games, laughter, and exchanges can provide this release and create a fraternal ambiance in which people understood and feel supported. Still, through these celebrations, initiates had yet another goal. They wanted to bring human beings to seek energies in these subtle regions that could regenerate and vivify their heart and soul. In this ambiance of joyous and beneficial exchanges, luminous entities came to draw energies, using them afterwards to carry on their work throughout the world. Do you wish to help in their work? You can consciously offer them the joy and spiritual wealth a celebration has brought to you so that others can benefit as well. This joy, this wealth will be returned to you amplified. This is how the initiates, in their wisdom, understand the meaning of a celebration. For if wisdom is solemn, it is also filled with gaiety. Now, we are going to look at the three aspects of this cardinal feast that Christmas is. We'll look at the historical, cosmic, and mystical point of view. The historical aspect relates evidently to the birth of Jesus. The cosmic aspect to the birth of the Christ principle in the entire cosmos. And the mystical aspect, the birth of the higher self, because it relates to us individually. Christ's child is to be born in every soul as divine light and divine love. Before we dive into the heart of our subject, let us begin by establishing a very basic rule. Everything that manifests in the physical world has its origin in the invisible world, in the subtle realms. You will see as we proceed how vital it is to know that in order to reach our objective today. So let's begin with the historical aspect and the esoteric meaning. We'll begin with the stable. It represents the human body. The manger is the hara center below the belly button, where the subconscious forces are located and where disciples bring their consciousness to birth the Christ child, like the womb of the mother. Jesus said that out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. It is a good time here to make the difference between Jesus, who was the man, and Christ, which is a state of consciousness. It began manifesting when he was 30 years old. Same with Gautama and Buddha. Gautama was the man. When he became illuminated or attained the Buddhic state, he was called Buddha. Each one of us can reach this higher consciousness called Christ if we understand the process and set to work. Okay, now back to our stable. We look at the ox, which represents the principle of generation. In the Egyptian mythology, the bull, Apis, is a symbol of fertility and fecundity. The bull is under the influence of Venus and represents the sexual force. And the donkey, the ass, represents the personality, the old Adam, the headstrong and stubborn, but it is a good servant. It is under the influence of Saturn. So the two animals, the ox and the donkey, are the sensuality and the personality, which corresponding to our lower self, which we will cover later with a wonderful diagram. In this story, the ox and the donkey are tamed, but they work together. They breathe on the child to keep him warm. They represent the life-giving forces that must not be rejected or neglected, but be put to work. Then we have the star in the sky. We'll talk about the pentagram as the star, Remember the painting of Leonardo da Vinci, the Vitruvian Man, the perfected human being with the 5 developed essential virtues of love, wisdom, truth, justice, and goodness. In the previous episode from this one, Alex presented the sacred geometry and expounded on the meaning of the pentagram and other geometrical figures. The star is also that symbol that appears above the head of a true initiate. There is a photo taken of the master in the early days of the Bonfim. The Bonfim is the international retreat center of the Brotherhood. And you can see above his head the sign of the lingam. It was only seen once the negative of the photo was developed. The lingam is a Hindu symbol representing the 2 principles, the masculine vertical line and the feminine horizontal line. It shines bright above his head. Here, in the historical aspect, the star shows the direction to follow to meet that special child who will fulfill the prophecy as the Messiah. Then we have the 3 wise men, or magi, Melchior, Balthazar, and Gaspar. They were leaders of great religions in their own country, and they were astrologers who observed the sky and saw exceptional planetary configurations that made them conclude of the extraordinary event taking place on Earth. They followed the star and their inner guidance to find this special child. And for the occasion, they brought special presents to acknowledge the great significance of his birth. The gift of gold was because Jesus was royal. Gold is the color of wisdom that shines brilliantly. In the tree of life of the Kabbalah, it's linked to the Sephira Tiferet, representing the light. Frankincense meant that Jesus was a priest. Incense is linked to religion, to love. It is also connected to the Sephira Hesed, as you see here. And the gift of myrrh, which is the symbol of immortality, it was used to embalm the body, linked to Bina, which conserves. You see how the 3 magi brought presents linked to the mind, to the emotions, and to the physical body. Isn't it extraordinary to make a connection between all these events and to bring the meaning in our inner work? The custom of bringing gifts to a newborn originates before our modern times. From an esoteric point of view, the meaning is far-reaching in symbolism. Nowadays, we've kept only the materialistic aspect of it. Then we have Herod, who, having heard of the birth of a special prophet, was furious and wanted to kill all the newborns. So Joseph, Mary, and baby Jesus fled to Egypt after being warned by an angel. Taking a different road represents that those nearing the Christ principle will not be able to follow the same road as before, but are showed a new direction. Same when we wake up spiritually. We do not want to go back to our old activities because that would be detrimental to our new discoveries and to our future. Even if we look at the symbolic meaning of the blood and milk, the man contributes the white, his semen. The mother provides the red, her blood, during gestation, the vital force of love. After the birth, the child is fed milk, purity, and light. See how the 2 colors correspond to the 2 principles, masculine and feminine, and how they are woven in the core of life. Isn't initiatic science amazing? As we mentioned before, any manifestation takes its origin in the subtle plane, as above, so below. The same laws apply in all the realms. Initiatic science is so fantastic because everything fits well together without any gaps or contradictions. Therefore, if a child requires parents on the physical plane, so do we in our spiritual work. Joseph represents the masculine principle, the intellect and the spirit. Mary represents the feminine principle, the heart and the soul. Joseph, or the intellect, did not deny Mary, the feminine principle, for without it, one becomes dry, cold, critical, discontent. Joseph was not that way. On the contrary, he accepted Mary, although she was with child. I invite you to read that pocket book of Christmas and Easter in the Initiatic Tradition. You may discover some interesting things about this particular subject. I will say no more and let you discover on your own. Now, let's talk about Mary. She was pure of heart. According to the sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce, Mary had long been prepared for her mission among the Essenes. She had been chosen as a vestal for their temple. The Essenes were known in those days as the perfect ones. Jesus, the child, is the result of the union of the masculine-feminine principles. In the spiritual realms, it is the union of spirit and the soul, producing the Christ child, the super consciousness. The story and life of Jesus embody the teaching of working on the soul and spirit to become Christ-like. He came to show us the way. In our psyche, for something to manifest, we need the intellect, the masculine principle, the heart, the feminine principle, to set things for a manifestation, whether it is for a child or for any creation. We'll come back to this in a moment when we look at the mystical aspect that concerns our spiritual work. Now, we will look at the cosmic point of view. The birth of Christ was a cosmic event that existed long before the historical event. It is the first manifestation of life in nature, the beginning. It is an event that must occur on all three planes: mental, emotional, and physical. You may remember from the first episode when we covered the subject of science of the initiates, or initiatic science. We covered the one, the principles, the laws, and the applications. And again in our 7th episode about the cosmic balance, the eternal masculine-feminine principle. This is where we explained that nothing was created outside of these two principles. I will not come back over these again, but for the purpose of understanding the birth of the Christ consciousness, I will quickly brush over the subject of the two principles. God, or cosmic spirit, is one. It is represented by fire, the eternal masculine principle. So God, wanting to demonstrate his presence and show his creation, projected a substance from himself, the eternal feminine principle. He polarized himself. That substance is the invisible light created on the first day, when it is said in the gospel, "Let there be light." We don't have another word in English or in French for expressing this kind of light, but in Bulgarian, there's another word for it. It is called videlina. In the Hindu tradition, it is called Akasha, the pure ether. It is the universal soul. That is what feeds the cosmos. It is the necessary element that brings about the manifestations of God's creation. it is good to differentiate the light of the first day with the light created on the fourth day, that of the sun, moon, and stars. It is called Svetlina in Bulgarian. This Videlina light, or universal soul, is the living water Jesus referred to. In this universal soul, we live, we move, and have our existence. It has different degrees of density depending on its realm. If we do not have the conscious awareness of this type of light, it is because we remain separated and disconnected from our subtle bodies. Christ is that universal soul. You see how the invisible light created on the first day of creation was made visible through the light of the sun, moon, and stars on the fourth day. As we said, everything comes from the invisible and eventually comes down to the visible. Now, even though the sun was created only on the fourth day, it has nevertheless a tremendous importance, for it is the best representation of the manifestation of Christ. The light, the warmth, and the life of the sun correspond to the wisdom, love, and life or truth of the higher realms. This is why in this teaching we go and contemplate the sun, so that through its light, warmth, and life we come closer to our own Christ self, our divinity as wisdom, love, and truth. It is what our fourth episode with Anatole covers, everything to know about light. It sounds like I'm making publicity for our previous episode, and in a way I am. All our episodes are based on the teaching of Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov, which is such a vast body of knowledge, but totally focused on showing human beings how to become divinities. You will not find anywhere else as many truths, truthfully true, as Hermes Trismegistus would say, as in this teaching. And now, finally, we will look at the mystical point of view. To better understand this aspect, let us use the diagram offered in the teaching of Master Omraam to illustrate our own psychic structure. You see the full image here and the division in the middle. The lower part illustrates our lower self, the personality, and the higher section of the circle shows our higher self, the individuality. The lower self is composed of the physical body, which is linked to willpower and our actions. The heart, our feelings, emotions, is linked to the astral body, and the intellect, our thoughts, are linked to the mental body. The higher self shows the causal body, the world of archetypes, the higher reason, the divine wisdom. Then we have the Buddhic body, our soul, the impersonal love, divine love. And at the top, we have the atmic body with our spirit and divine power. The second birth, the Christ child, takes place when the lower self, or the personality, is merged with the higher self, our individuality. On the lower self of the personality, the intellect must first understand the process of conception to provide a seed idea, then send it to the heart, which should be open and receptive, and nurture it to the point of stimulating the willpower for its realization. Of course, intellectually, everyone can understand this process, but to bring it down into feelings so the heart gets fully engaged for its realization, work is needed and more demanding. From there on, things are set in motion through the subconscious mind, just as they do with the mother once she's been fertilized. The forces of nature do the work during gestation. even more so if she nurtures divine thoughts and feelings in order to attract a higher soul or a benefactor of humanity, as was explained in episode number 3, Women Have the Power to Change the World with Carla and Laura. The process just explained is the same in the individuality or the higher self, with the higher reason, the soul and spirit. The spirit is masculine, the soul is feminine. Together they produce magnificent work that will produce magnificent results, such as prototype in the causal realm, where people pick up ideas, new inventions, just like Jules Verne did in his writing with futuristic devices that are now a reality. Understanding how the system works so that we can say, as Jesus mentioned, that we can do as great work as he did and greater ones. For look at all he accomplished in the 3 years of his public life. Hopefully we will live longer than 3 years once we develop this higher consciousness, so we have time to accomplish as much, if not greater works. Christ, or the second birth, must take place in every human soul as principles of divine light and divine love. It is not born of the mind or the heart, but of the holy cosmic spirit in the form of a sacred fire which invades and fertilizes the universal soul. Then it comes down to the human soul and heart. For this, we need to know how to use our polarities. If on the physical plane a man is emissive, he creates the child, and a woman is receptive, she forms it and brings it into the world, and their anatomy confirms this. But on the astral plane, a woman is emissive. She uses her creative power to fertilize the universal soul, and a man is receptive, using his formative power to receive the cosmic spirit. Fascinating, isn't it? You see how both principles, masculine and feminine, play a major role, not just physically, but also in our own psyche, and how they both have equal importance to bring about a manifestation. It is said in the gospel that we are to be reborn of fire and water. That means the Holy Spirit or sacred fire as divine wisdom, masculine, and the universal soul or water as divine love, feminine. Fire and water also represent spirit and matter. Working with both, our own matter and joining it with our spirit. The marriage of the masculine and feminine principle, that is wisdom and love, together they give birth to truth into the world as a new consciousness. The Christ child is the truth. No one can bring this holy birth unless they understand their Mother Earth. Our body comes from the earth and shall return to the earth. Mother Nature has the ability to transform impurities in her laboratories and make beautiful flowers, delicious fruit, and vegetables out of them. By honoring her, we honor our own body and prepare it to receive the higher vibrations in preparation for that second birth. To attract the Holy Spirit, sacred fire, we have to provide an open and receptive soul so the living flow of water can inundate it. For this to happen properly, it requires a living and pure divine life, but primarily to be filled with love. It is said that the most direct path to God is love. We left off with the idea of honoring Mother Earth and how she can transform impurities into beauty and goodness. We too have a work to do with transmuting our impurities into beauty, health, virtues, and qualities. Living a pure and divine life does not mean to be an ascetic. No, purity is so much more than abstinence. It relates to our whole being and in all our bodies. I recommend you read the book entitled The Mysteries of Yesod. Yesod is the sephira linked to purity, which is the foundation of spiritual life. Purity entails to nourish ourselves with as pure and living food as possible, to breathe fresh air, to read and listen to uplifting subjects. That also means to wean the bad dependencies of the body, and on the psychological level, to let go of vices, weaknesses, and attitude such as slandering, criticizing, demeaning others. A great master does not dwell on the faults and shortcomings of his disciples, although he sees these faults very well. He prefers to hold the divine in them in order to awaken it. In the same way that the birth of a child contains the hope for life, the birth of the Christ within us is also our hope. It is the manifestation of our full potential, our super consciousness. It is the very reason of our creation, of our existence. It is our destiny, each one of us. Of course, it is not as easy as it sounds. Take the alchemists, for example. How much work they put into their attempts to produce the philosopher's stone. They realized that their external experiments were highly influenced by their own inner development and inner discoveries. Alchemists knew that it was a long and difficult process. It is referred to as the great work. But despite the hardships and requirements, they followed a specific process of transformation that led them to that philosopher's stone, giving them the power to transmute base metal into gold. In this process, they work with the black, raw substance called the prima materia, which they put into their crucible, like the womb or the feminine aspect, and then with the fire, the masculine aspect, they set to work in order to purify it until it shined and revealed itself, the child, the result, that philosopher's stone. Interestingly enough, when you read about the alchemists, those who discovered the philosopher's stone, they were no longer interested in the gold itself. They had discovered within themselves far more interesting things. Anyhow, some spend their entire life working on that process. While alchemists sought the philosopher's stone, the mystics sought enlightenment, samadhi, or bliss. For this, many retrieved into caves, grottos, or monasteries. Yet, we have to begin somewhere to move towards our divinity, and somewhere is precisely where we're at in our life today. Now, let us talk about the Black Madonna, which is linked to the work of the alchemist. Did you know that there are over 400 of them throughout the world? Some say as many as 500, mostly located in Europe, particularly in the south of France, where many alchemists lived in the Middle Ages, but also as far as the Philippines. When I visited the Abbey of the Benedictines in Heissenden in Switzerland, I asked my host if she knew why the Virgin Mary and baby Jesus were black. She told me that it was probably because of a fire and soot covered their faces. I did not dare go too far in explaining what I had learned, other than saying that it may, in fact, reveal greater mysteries, such as the hidden power of women and how a seed and a fetus develop in the dark, symbolizing the prima materia of the alchemist. Anyhow, The alchemists and mystics of the past knew very well what they were doing by representing their work with the Black Madonna. But they had to veil their knowledge, for their church was very suspicious of their activities and often condemned any work outside of their knowledge or control, or even more so about the role of women and the primordial feminine importance. The second birth is a conscious, deliberate effort to imitate the divine design, the cosmic blueprint, which we all carry within us. The human structure is patterned on the cosmic structure. As above, so below. We are the microcosm of the macrocosm. So if this process takes place in the cosmos, we too can follow it in order to birth the Christ consciousness. Of course, it requires a great discernment, an unwavering love, and a powerful will. These are all essential to tame the personality, the lower self, and get it to become a faithful servant. No point rejecting, repressing, or negating the lower nature. It holds tremendous power and resources that have developed over eons of incarnations. It is far better to use these resources and put them at the service of the higher self. This is the best psychology, initiatic psychology, how to use the bad, evil, negative stuff and put it at the service of something good and more perfect. I call that spiritual recycling. Why not? If it exists on Earth with all kinds of used materials transformed into new ones, it means the same system exists on the subtle planes, including our psyche. In fact, this is how, for the initiates and great masters, this is how they deal with evil. They use it and transform it into something sublime. It is us who don't know how to work yet with such forces. But in the initiatic school, we learn how to begin this work with our own negative things. Anyhow, this process of the second birth begins when we decide to be born into the world of light. The spark that we are is the seed that seeks to be put in the ground, to sprout, grow, and produce great results. To prepare the path for this rebirth, we can practice self-observation, like taming our impulses and inner wild animals, so to speak. In modern language, we would say our basic instincts. Then removing all these layers and recording within to make room for a higher quintessence to come down. Learning and practicing to balance our own intellect with our heart and willpower. Not simply using one at the detriment of the other two. Otherwise, we are lopsided, and that creates conflicts and imbalances. Initiates, sages, and great masters see to always keep their trinity in perfect balance, and we too are a trinity, but may not be aware yet of the importance of these elements to be in balance. Each of those triangles represents the masculine and feminine principle. When you take these two equally developed triangles and superimpose them, you get the seal of Solomon. Initiates and great masters who have these two triangles equally developed and balanced are androgynous and have become living seals of Solomon. All powers are given to them. Another thing we can do is meditating often on fusing, merging our lower nature with our higher nature. The higher self is our own self, but developed at 100%. It is our divine self. It is our Christ self. In the first book of the Aquarian team entitled What the Future of Humanity Could Be, in the chapter about evolution and involution, we mention that if Einstein was developed at 8% of the human potential, being modest for ourselves in comparison, we might say that we are developed at maybe 5%. This means that 95% of us keep repeating the same patterns, the same recordings, the same habits. You know how difficult it is to change, don't you? Even changing our own eating habits. Imagine changing our thoughts and feelings, which are far more subtle and of which we don't pay much attention to. Our first task as disciples, when we engage on the path of light, is self-transformation, to become aware of our thoughts, feelings, passions, and impulsions that drive us. And then we begin to feel an expansion in our awareness. We begin to see, to hear, to connect with things we never paid attention to before. For this awareness, room is needed and old concepts have to go. One of the best support for this self-transformation in this teaching is to have a high ideal. It is like a guiding light in the mind that shows the direction. If we add the energy of the heart, that means to love and nurture this high ideal, and then set the willpower to act accordingly to the mind and the heart, then our trinity, intellect, heart, and will become aligned and powerful. Most human beings have their three faculties, each operating in an opposite direction, so they get poor results. With a high ideal, we engage the three faculties to work together. It is like creating a very strong ally, a living entity who is always there to inspire us, guide us, and protect us so we can stay the course and keep moving forward and upward. A high ideal could be to become as perfect as the Celestial Father, or to work for the kingdom of God. Again, in modern language, I would say to contribute to the coming of the Golden Age. And that is not a city, nor a religion, but it is a state of consciousness. With unifying our three faculties in a single direction, we already assure our victory, for in strength lies unity. Christ is the second birth. It is a new consciousness, a Buddhic consciousness. It is the super consciousness. It is the manifestation of the higher self. When we experience that higher self, it reveals itself as a light that chases all darkness, a warmth so that we never feel alone, an abundance of life as strength and forces to do the will of God, an extraordinary joy at being connected with the universe. We feel that heaven opens us and fills us with light, protection, and joy. We feel a presence that never leaves us. We have to trigger the process in our soul as the one that takes place in the cosmos and in nature, and follow the law of divine magic. We need a seed, the ground, and the right conditions to bring about a manifestation. Then all subconscious forces, like in nature, set to work to realize the image of perfection, following the lines of force of the plan. Let's try to focus for a moment on that process. Close your eyes and just follow. Hold the image of your higher self like a spark. You can place it in your mind or in your heart or in your solar plexus or even in the Hara center. The location is not as important as the focus you put on it. So imagine that this spark begins to grow, to glow, and to fill your whole physical body as a white light. It is emanating all the way around you and stretches until it reaches your higher bodies, the causal body, the buddhic body, and the atmic body. You become one. The lower self and higher self are fusing. Let yourself bathe in this light. If you do this exercise often and feel that you can hold this image comfortably, why not expand it to the whole planet and to all humanity? Imagine that they all become filled with white light. Why not share this light with the world? In this way, you help and contribute tremendously to its upliftment. Seeing how disinterested you are, invisible helpers will come and bring you gifts of joy and inspiration. That is what we practice in the centers of light of the Universal White Brotherhood, as seen in our episode 5 of our series on collectivity. When you practice this meditation at home, try to remember the process we talked about today. The sacred fire of spirit wants to fertilize our soul, so we call on it. We open our soul with a lot of love. Then we let the process take place in the secret chamber of our inner laboratory. We are our own alchemists, and we practice pure white magic. Those who are being born in you are like bees, working for the collectivity, going for the nectar without destroying anything, and then producing the sweetness of honey. Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov said that the Third Testament would be living beings, beings who do not seek. What seeks? It is the intellect that seeks. What does it seek? Light, knowledge. With this higher consciousness, there's no need to seek, as the intellect has the wisdom and the divine light. Then do not ask. What asks? It is the heart that does. It wants to love and to be loved. No need to ask in this higher consciousness, because we experience divine love. It wants to give all its warm tenderness and love. Then do not knock. What knocks? The willpower knocks. It wants to create, to accomplish actions. Again, no need to knock, because in this state, all doors open before the will of God. Those beings have the freedom to create as they wish. They live in divine power. So like Christ, in that higher consciousness, we can do as great and even greater things than he did. Now, because the new year is coming, it's so near, only a few days, it is celebrated around the world through different traditions and religions. Many countries go by the Gregorian or Christian calendar because it provides a good balance between the seasons and the calendar days. But some traditions celebrate the new year at different times of the year by their respective names, such as the Lunar New Year of the Chinese people, or the Rosh Hashanah of the Jewish people, or the Diwali in India with the Hindu people. In the Western world, it is celebrated on the 1st of January, and for many, it is a time to decide on new resolutions. Whether they are kept or not is another story. For as we said earlier, changing is not easy. Maybe this year we can take a moment of reflection before the new year begins and revise the shortcomings of the past year, the unfulfilled premises, and the problems and how we solved them. My husband and I hold a little ceremony each year on New Year's Eve, where we put on a piece of paper the things we would like to let go of, and on another piece of paper, the things we would like to develop and see manifested in the year to come. Then we put all of these little papers in the fireplace, offering them to the angel of fire, Agni, and we meditate for a while. One thing to know is that although the year is new, we carry with us the old recordings and habits which we imprint onto the commencing year, and unless we do something consciously to change them. For students of an esoteric divine school, such as the Universal Brotherhood, it is the perfect time to revise these recordings and habits and replace them with new thoughts, new feelings, and new behaviors that will be reflected throughout the whole year. So we use the first 12 days as a representation of the 12 months. We use them in a conscious manner to set the grooves for the whole year. So this is how it works. You take the 1st of January, it reflects the month of January. You take the 2nd of January, it reflects the second month, February. And the 3rd of January reflects the month of March, and so forth. So let's see how we can prepare these first 12 days in a divine way, with a divine recipe. Here it goes. First ingredient. Wake up every day saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for my life. Thank you for my body, for my eyes, my ears, my limbs, my organs. Second ingredient, try to remember our dreams while still not fully awake. It is a good time when we are so close to the dream state to remember them and even maybe to record them. Then step out of bed on the right foot to consciously start the day in the right way. It is not a matter of superstition or automatism, but a conscious, aware step in the right direction. Wash our hands and face to wash any impurities that might have accumulated in the astral body during the night. Salute nature and harmonize ourselves with it and the entire cosmos. State consciously that today we want to do the will of God. Then go in our inner sanctum to pray or meditate. Try to silence the 5 senses for a while. Then keep a journal for each day of any coincidences, different states of being that took place during the day, unexpected event, or even phone calls. Cultivate joy and gratefulness in a conscious way during the day. Practice the yoga of nutrition, eating with love and gratitude, being fully present of all the forces delivered by the 4 elements who have worked on making this food. You can learn more in our episode number 3 on the yoga of nutrition with Alex. And before retiring at night, revise the day and make correction if needed. Later, as the months go by, review the corresponding day and see how it relates to that month. You will see how amazing it is. Of course, this does not mean that the year will unfold perfectly well, because we are linked to the past of our present life and the past of our previous incarnations. But it is a step to become more aware, broaden our consciousness, and gain more self-control. Through our efforts and dedication, we move forward. Before ending this presentation, I would like to share with you a beautiful prayer that Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov gave to a sister at Izgrev, the center near Paris, to Sir Jeanne d'U in 1945, entitled O Videlina. O light, divine light, dazzling and subtle Videlina, envelope us with your powerful rays, penetrate our auras, vivify our chakras, enlighten our spirits, take possession of our bodies, penetrate each one of our cells, and revive in us the sacred fire. O sublime Videlina, impregnate the atmosphere of our planet. Spread yourself all over the earth in vibrating cascades. In closing, on behalf of the organizing team of the Fraternal Forum and the entire International Brotherhood, I wish you a wonderful second birth. May your dedication bring you closer to cosmic light and universal love. Until next time, farewell.
That was so revealing, Carmen. Thank you so much for this enlightening talk on experiencing a mystical Christmas. I now have a better understanding of what initiates and great masters like Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov mean by being reborn a second time. Let's make every effort to practice and integrate these principles into our daily lives. I for sure will try. The books Carmen used in this talk are Christmas and Easter in the Initiatic Tradition and The Second Birth, Love, Wisdom, and Truth. And she also mentioned the Mysteries of Yesod, Foundations of the Spiritual Life, all by Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. They're available at www.omraam.world or www.prosbeta.world. If you've enjoyed this episode, stay tuned for the next episode on January 6th. It is titled The Four Sacred Sciences and will be presented by Richard Kamenji. If you're curious, these four sciences are alchemy, astrology, Kabbalah, and magic. I'm sure if I had known, my science fair projects would have been far more interesting. The last episode of this second series will feature Anatole. He will be interviewing brothers and sisters from all over the world who live the teaching of Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. It will be streamed as of January 20th. As always, see you in 2 weeks. Stay safe and stay connected.